And welcome everybody. Thank you so much for showing up to this Illustrator, this Adobe Illustrator tutorial. And I got to kind of get my windows squared away here. So we're doing this for Shawn Mayo and his mastering the POD, print on demand and merch by Amazon. And I want to go over, we're going to be going over some basics tonight, how to get around, how to do some of the basic things in Adobe Illustrator, and then we are going to hopefully have some fun, and hopefully you'll start to get a better idea of how to get around, and then as we move on to future tutorials, we'll be talking about some more advanced techniques. Okay, so let me get my notes open. Okay, so again, I'm going to reiterate what I shared with you guys last week in doing the Photoshop tutorial, and that is the best way to learn any Adobe program, or the best way to learn Photoshop or Illustrator in this case, is by doing something. Okay, so this puts you in a problem-solving frame of mind, and it's really important that you actually are working on something inside of Illustrator so that you can start to get comfortable with where the tools are and how to figure things out. And you can notice if something unexpected happens, right? And then you can post it in the Facebook group, and we can work on it together and make sure that you guys become proficient at Illustrator or at whatever you're working on. So again, I want to reiterate, Jade Elizabeth, who's also a member of the Facebook group, both Shawn's and my group, she shared with me last week something that really inspired me, and that was, even people who have worked with Photoshop or Illustrator from day one, and the people building it today, the people doing the programming, are still learning new tricks, tips, and things to do with it. It's a huge and long learning experience that never ends. Both Photoshop and Illustrator are extremely powerful programs, and when you have powerful programs that can do almost anything, well, they take a while to learn. All right, so I don't understand the question, Jonathan. What's the high-level difference between the two products? So, okay, okay, I think I do. I think I get what you're getting at there. Okay, so the high-level difference between the two products is that, and I'm actually going to show you and demonstrate that here. Let's see. Bear with me just a second. I'm having some trouble with the bar up here is not hiding, and it's getting in the way. Let's see here. All right, well, we'll have to work around it, I guess. So let's see if I put it over. Okay, I think about it out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to show you a file that will show you the high-level difference and hopefully demonstrate it. But the bottom line is that Photoshop is pixel-based image manipulation, and Adobe Illustrator is vector-based. It's a math program, so it doesn't matter. You could be zoomed in at 64,000%, and you're still going to see the image is crisp as it being zoomed out. So almost any time you're looking at an image on the side of a building or any kind of ad creative or anything like that, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have been created in Adobe Illustrator. Photographs are basically manipulated and edited in Photoshop, and any kind of vector-based graphic or any kind of ad creative is usually created in Illustrator. So I hope that sort of answers your question. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a couple of things. So we're going to open up how to open up a file. So it's just like you would do any other program. You just go File, Open, and you come to your dealimabobber here. Sorry, pardon my. Okay, so you're going to get your dialog box, and you want to make sure, first of all, we covered this last week, but you want to make sure that your filter down here is set to all formats so that you can see any of the formats that Illustrator can open. And then Illustrator, a lot of times you'll see these 3 different types of file formats. So .ai, this is the most common. So 99.9999% of the time when you're working in Illustrator today, you're going to see this kind of file extension, a .ai. In the past, or from other countries, sometimes you'll end up with an EPS or an SVG, and both of those can be opened in Illustrator, but most of the time you're going to want to be working in this type of file, this .ai here. Okay, if you cannot see the extension here, I put a tutorial in the Facebook group on how to see the extensions here. So go ahead and after this one, go ahead and head on over to there over the Facebook group and watch that one. It's a really quick, like 2-minute tutorial on how to make sure that you can see these extensions. Okay, so let me go ahead and open up the file here. And so this is kind of just a quick demonstration on the different measurement units that are common to Illustrator, okay? So what I did here is I created a couple of guides, and you can see up here that these 2 long lines, they're 1 inch apart, okay? I've got the rulers turned on this artboard here. And then what I did basically is to give you a sense of scale, I scaled down the text for each element in relationship to this. This is not actually 1 inch text. It's actually 10 point, but you can see here that we scaled this down to reflect its equivalent size from what 10 points would be, to kind of give you an illustration of how they're in reference to each other. So most of the time in Illustrator, you're dealing with inches, picas, and points. So it takes 6 picas are in 1 inch, 12 points are in a pica, and then 72 picas are in 1 inch. And of course, that's a lot of like weird talk to say that, yeah, nobody really deals with anything except in inches, but it's good to know from a point of reference that these things all make each other up, okay? And so what we have here is we've got 1 inch long, I don't know, black line, right? And then the next size down would be 1 centimeter. So this is equivalent to 1 centimeter, and that's 2.5 or 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. Okay. Then we've got the pica here. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but again, there's 6 picas per inch. And then down here, I'm sure you can read this really, really well. Okay. This is a millimeter, and a millimeter is, well, wait a minute. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that and take a look. And so what you're going to see here is something that's kind of cool and also illustrates at a high level the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. So I'm going to zoom in here, and the way I'm doing that, just so you guys know, there's 150 different ways to zoom, it seems like, in Illustrator, but I'm holding down my Alt key and I'm scrolling my mouse wheel up, okay? I'll show you a few different ways to zoom in a minute, but as I hold the Alt key and I scroll my mouse wheel up, I'm zooming in around or centered on wherever the mouse is. So like if I move the mouse down here in the bottom corner and I scroll the wheel up, it's zooming towards the mouse, okay? So let me scroll back out. What's kind of neat about how Illustrator works its zoom is you can reposition the mouse, okay? And then it'll start to zoom in towards the mouse here, okay? Now to get the hand to grab it like we did last week with Photoshop, once I'm zoomed in on a document, I can press my space bar. That gives me the hand here, which is over here in the toolbar. And then I can click my mouse and I can move it in the direction I want to move it in, okay? So I don't know if you can see this, but this is pretty sharp text here, right? But notice how far in we're zoomed. We're zoomed in 12,750%. And this is just like if we were in Photoshop and something was at 100%, right? So this is what it means to do things, graphics with math, right? It's all math based. So basically, this is going to be just as sharp at 12,000% as it is out here at 33%, okay? So again, to do this scrolling, all I'm doing is I'm holding the Alt key and I'm using my mouse wheel. Now here's the zoom tool is actually over here. It's got the same shortcut key as it is in Photoshop. You can press Z on your keyboard and that'll give you your zoom tool. And you can click and it will click towards the tool, towards your mouse cursor. And you can see there's a little magnifying glass with a plus on it, so we're going to be zooming in. If we want to zoom out, all you do is hold the Alt key, and you see on the magnifying glass we get a little minus sign, and if we click our mouse, we're going to be zooming out. So this is another way to zoom. Let me grab that. Again, this is spacebar, and then moving them and clicking and holding the mouse and moving it so I can reposition the document. Another way to zoom in Illustrator is we can take the zoom tool and we can highlight. This is extremely handy, and you're going to do this a lot when you're working on Illustrator documents, okay? You can take it and just grab, no keyboard shortcuts necessary. You know, if I want to zoom in, you see this little line down here, it's barely visible, right? So, but if I want to take a look at and see what that is, all I have to do is take the magnifying glass and drag, you know, click the mouse, hold it down, drag a little box around, a little marquee around it, let go, and I end up zooming right in on that text, okay? And that puts us at 63,533.33% zoom, okay? And you can see how sharp that text is right there, okay? Now, when you see the magnifying glass, it doesn't have a plus in it anymore, right? And you'll notice that we're at 64,000 zoom. That's as far in as you can zoom on a document, okay? So 64,000% zoomed, which should be good enough for almost anything that you would ever work on, is as tight in as you can get, okay? And so you can see this is one point, and in relation to the text that I have set up at an inch at 10 points above, I actually couldn't even get down small enough with this text. The smallest amount I could get was like 0.14 with the text. So anyway, that kind of shows you how tiny a point is. All right, so if we want to zoom back out, we can do a couple things. We can use our keyboard. Like if we don't want to, you know, hold Alt and kind of zoom out slowly like this, what we can do is we can hold our Control key and 0 at the same time. And then what that does is that fits the current artboard on our workspace, okay? This white area here is called an artboard in Illustrator, all right? We do work with layers in Illustrator, but not in the same way that we work with them in Photoshop, okay? Illustrator has something that are called artboards, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But honestly, when you're doing designs for merch and some of the stuff that we're really going to be talking about, the print-on-demand stuff, you're probably not going to be opening more than one artboard at a time. But it's good to understand artboards and how they work, so that if you get, you know, kind of screwed up and in a mess, you kind of understand what's going on, okay? So anyway, let's go ahead and scroll back in here, zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so again, Control-0 will fit your artboard into the workspace, and this workspace is this gray area around the artboard, okay? Let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. So all this gray area out here is workspace, okay? So the artboard itself, this is what we'll print in Illustrator, but you can actually store, let me grab a square here. So let's say we wanted to draw a square that's got even sides, okay? And we do that, and we've got a black fill there. We'll make it orange, okay? And then I want to show you this up here. The selection tool is, you know, this selection tool and this direct selection tool are going to be two of the tools that you're going to use most often. Again, you should memorize the shortcut keys. The selection tool is V, and the direct selection tool is an A. So if you come over here, you can see I've got the black arrow tool or the selection tool highlighted. If I want to go to the white tool, the direct selection tool, I just hit the letter A on my keyboard. You'll notice the handles on the square on the object change. And then if I want to go back, I just hit V, and that gives me the black tool there, okay? And anyway, so the direct selection tool allows you to directly select something just like you think it would and move it around, okay? So if I want to, because this is Illustrator, I can drag this this item over here, and I can just leave it here. So you might have somebody helping you with your designs for merch, and if that's the case, right, you guys may have assets that you maybe don't want to use for this particular design, but you don't want to lose them either. And so what you might do is you might, just drag them off into this workspace over here, and then you don't lose them, right? Then you can bring them back anytime you want. You can create another artboard or whatever you want, okay? So, and again, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Probably I won't get to that tonight, but we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in another webinar. Okay, so let's see here. Let me get back over here. Back to my notes. All right, so now basically you guys have a little bit of an understanding, hopefully. I hope that this was helpful here, and it gives you kind of a reference point for the different dimensions that you can work with in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this down, and you'll notice that we get this dialog box up here, right? And the reason is because we've made changes to this artboard and this document inside of Illustrator, and that's indicated by this little asterisk up here at the top next to the .ai, okay? The asterisk indicates that there have been changes that have not been saved, okay? So because I tried to close it directly up here using the X and the tab, we got this little dialog box, okay? And it's really important that you guys, the only person that knows whether or not your work needs to be saved is you, okay? And so never leave your computer without saving your documents, okay? Like let's say you're in a shared workspace, or you're sharing your desktop and you're working with somebody else, right? And you're away, but they come back and they try to close things to clean up, and they get this dialog box, right? Most people, what they'll do when they get this dialog box is they'll click yes, right? Do you want to save the changes to this Illustrator document, okay? Well, what happens if, let me zoom back out here, over here. What happens if I had made a change like this in the document, right? And I come in and I'd actually taken this and I deleted it because I was not sure really what I wanted to put here, or what's more likely is I had, because I went through this last night actually, and I just like blew up the size of the font here, right? But I stepped away to go get a Dr. Pepper, and I didn't save it, and then somebody else came back in, right? And they clicked on this and they go, oh, well, we should definitely save this document because, I don't want him to lose any changes that he's made. But I don't really want to keep these changes, So if he saves over that, it could screw things up for you is what I'm trying to get at, and hopefully you guys can understand that. So what you want to do is make sure that you decide what to do with this document before you leave, okay, and then close out of it. So if you click yes, what's going to happen is it's going to save this document that you've made all these changes to back into your original document. If you click no, it won't save any of the changes that you've made, and it'll close the document, okay? So just like I was saying, if you don't want to keep the changes, right, you want to click no, it'll close the document. But if you do want to keep the changes, don't make the mistake of clicking no and losing all your changes. And then of course, if you're not sure if you need to clean some things up, you can click cancel, and that'll return you directly to the artboard and the document that you were working on, okay? So another thing that you can do in Illustrator is you can come over here, and we've got a revert command, which is a shortcut key of F12. And when you click on revert, it'll revert your document back to where it was before you made any changes, okay? So we do that. It'll give you the dialog. Are you really sure that you want to do that, because you're going to lose all your current changes, okay? And then we're back to the document the way it was. You can see there's no orange box. This inch has been restored back to 10 points. up here. Okay, so the document's been restored. And your undo. So what's a little bit different from Photoshop is that when you revert the document, your undo, your history clears itself out. So you're not going to be able to undo things in Illustrator once you revert the document back to its original state. Okay, is everybody following along? Hopefully getting some value out of this. I hope. Feel free to give me nice and kind comments in the chat box. Okay, so the other thing that you could do is you can do a save as, and this is what a lot of people will do if they've made some changes and they want to save a version of the document that they're working on. So again, let's look up here, right? Because we reverted this document, the asterisk is not here. So when we click on File, it's not going to give us an option to save because there's no reason to save it, right? But let's say we want to, we don't want to be destructive in our editing. So we want to go ahead and we want to save this into like an original file or something like that, So usually what I do is if I'm going to work on a file that I'm not sure what's going to happen to it, and I want to make sure that I've got an original save point, is I'll come over here and I'll do save as, and I'm in my document here, and I'll do 000 space, right? And then even over here towards the end, I'll do a dash original like that, okay? And then I can click save. Sorry, I pressed enter on my keyboard, okay? And this brings up the Illustrator dialog box of, do you want these options? And if you unselect these options, maybe you save a few kilobytes, and you're not going to ever save enough, unless you get rid of the PDF thing, you're not going to really ever save enough to justify turning these things off, in my opinion, okay? So I always recommend that we just kind of leave these defaults here and click OK. And that's going to be your easiest thing, especially if you're just creating stuff for merch, okay? So no. Okay, sorry. Julia is asking a question. Hang on. Yes, you're right. It should say 72 points. My goodness, Mark. Sorry. Thanks, Julia. Should be 72 points in an inch. Sorry. It was late last night when I was putting the finishing touches on this. All right. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so we're defaulting. We're going to use the default. Okay, we're going to use the default settings when we're saving. Okay. Now notice up here. Now I'm working on this original file, right? Which I actually made an important change to, right? I changed it to 72 points, which is actually accurate. So what I need to do here is I need to go ahead and save this, right? So we're saving to the original file. Okay. And then I come over here. I close that out. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there's a few ways to, well, okay, so this is how I usually will open documents, unless I'm opening up a template. I'll find the folder that I'm working in that's got my Illustrator files in it, and what I'll do is I'll grab the file here, and I'll drag it up here into the tab bar, okay, where the tabs live, okay? Now, if you drag it into the workspace, it's going to paste the file into the workspace. But if you drag it up here to where the tabs live, it's just going to open the file as a separate tab, okay? Now here I need to go ahead and change this. All right. And because I want to be working on this file, I'm just going to save that, okay? And you see the asterisk goes away. All right. Thanks, Julia, for pointing that out. All right. Okay. Now let me get back on my notes here and make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So let me go ahead and close. So I'm going to close this one. No. Okay, so when you open up Illustrator, this is more than likely what you're going to see, especially if you're starting from scratch. Okay, as you work on more and more projects, this will fill with the history and the recent files that you've worked on. Okay, if you've got Creative Cloud files that you've saved to the cloud, they will, any assets that you saved up here will show here. And then if you've done any mobile projects, or if you have any of the mobile applications like Adobe Sketch and I forget what the Photoshop one, or sorry, Illustrator Draw, and I think it might be Photoshop Sketch or something like that, that you're syncing with your Creative Cloud account, they'll show up here, okay? But most of the time, you're gonna be starting from here. So you've got two options here. You can open a file, right? And if you open a file just like we did a minute ago, it's going to open up in your tab here, okay? But if you want to create a new file, what you do is you can click here in new, or do Control-N, or you can come up here and you can do new this way, okay? Probably what you guys are going to be doing once you get set up in your, once you get set up doing more merch stuff, is you're going to be, sorry, I need to rearrange a couple things here, bear with me. Okay, good grief. Sorry guys. Okay, that's better. Just rearranging something on the desktop on my other monitor. Okay, so so more than likely what you're going to be doing is you're going to have a template set up, and I'm going to show you how to create that template right now, okay? First thing we need to do is we need to click on this new, we're going to create a new file. And that brings up this new, I don't know, new document. It's a new document dialog, basically, is what it is, okay? And what we want if we're doing stuff for merch is we want to start off with a 15 by 18 inch artboard, okay? And so I've already got that here and set up. It's RGB in color, but this new document dialog isn't as robust as the old one. And so the way we can get to the old one is by clicking on more settings here. And this brings up the older new document dialog. And what's kind of neat about this is you can do all kinds of nifty stuff with it. Okay, so up here, the name, this will just be the name of the tab that ends up opening up inside of Illustrator. This has nothing to do with the file name, because since you're creating a new document, that new document's not going to actually have its file name until you save it. So this could be really anything, but let's just call it Amazon merch template, because we're going to be creating a template from this. Okay, okay, so we got 25 minutes, so we're doing pretty good on time. Right here under profile, you can default to any of these profiles that you want, and so what will happen is all these settings down here will automatically adjust to what Illustrator believes the best print settings are. So if you select print here, you'll notice the custom goes away, and then all the custom settings are going to go away down here. But basically for print, Illustrator is going to default to CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and then the key color, which is black. And then it's going to give you your raster effects in 300 ppi. Now, raster effects in Illustrator are just those effects which are illustrated or which are generated by pixels, okay? So this really doesn't have anything to do with the pixel density of the actual image that you're going to be working on, okay? This is just for raster effects like shadows, drop shadows, and different things like that that have to be rastered in Illustrator. If you select high at 300 ppi, depending on how powerful your computer is and how good your video card is, this can actually really cause you to chunk down and cause your computer to smoke, so to speak. Okay, obviously screen 72 ppi, that's a legacy setting from a long time ago, and so what I think most people do in Illustrator is they split the difference and they'll set their raster effects to go 150 ppi. You're going to designate your dots per inch when you export your file for print or export it for whatever you're going to use it for and that's going to be later. We're going to cover that. Probably I'm not going to get to that tonight, but so don't worry about this. But you can definitely save some processing power by using splitting the difference and going 150 ppi. Okay, and then preview mode, you could just leave that as default. That's not going to impact anything. Okay, but you notice the second that we change any of the defaults here, we get up here the profile changes to custom. Okay, so we want to actually, we don't want to be in CMYK, I don't believe. We want to be doing RGB and so anyway, so let's go ahead and make a few other changes here. The other thing too is more than likely you're only going to be using one artboard, but if you decide that you want to see that you want to work on multiple different artboards at one time, that's one thing that Illustrator has that can be extremely powerful. So let's say you've got 3 or 4 designs that you want to just knock out all at once, and you want to work on them all at once, and maybe you're just making minor changes to the color of the font, the color of the text, or what type of font you're using for whatever print design you're going to be setting up. Well, in here, this is where you can set up different artboards. So you can, I think the max is 100. This might be 99. Let's take a look. It's 100. Okay, so the max number of artboards you can have is 100. Of course, that's going to be a little bit crazy, but let's say you decided that you wanted 6 artboards, and you were going to work on 6 revisions of a similar idea. You could have them all open in your same Illustrator workspace, and designate that here if you wanted that to be part of your template. Okay. Jonathan is asking, he says he doesn't see how to get to more settings, so let me cancel out of this really quick and go ahead and address that. So from the beginning here, we want to go to File and then New. Okay, and then this dialog box comes up. Now, if you have an older version of Illustrator, you may not be seeing exactly what I'm seeing. Your more settings may be the default, right? Because this is a new version of the new document dialog. But more settings is right down here on the right side. Okay, so if you're in the recent tab up here under the new document dialog, over here on the right side, if you see all these details here, the name, you can adjust the name, the width and the height, the bleed, your orientation, whether it's landscape or vertical. You can even designate the number of artboards here, but you don't have some of the other things that I'm going to be showing you here as we're setting up. So the more settings is over here on the right side, right below the color mode. Okay, it says more settings, and you click on that, and that opens up the more settings dialog box. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Jonathan. Okay, why don't you go ahead and post that in the Facebook group, and if you can send a couple screenshots, then I'll probably be able to figure out what's going on, and we'll get you squared away. Okay. I'm going to mark those as answered. All right. So again, what we're going to do here is we're setting up for Amazon. We're setting up an Amazon merch template. Okay. We're just going to default to, okay, I wanted to show you guys this here. So let's say we wanted to have multiple artboards. You can designate how the artboards appear once we create this document. Okay, so this button here says that, let's say we wanted to have 6 artboards. They would start, there'd be one here, one in the middle, so it'd basically go from the left to right and then down to the next row. If you wanted to have them sort from the top down, you could do it that way, and that's what this one here. So it goes 1, 2, 3, and then starts at the top, 4, 5, 6. You can tell it if you want it to go from left to right, top to bottom, and you can reverse it over here. So this basically makes this is horizontal in one row, and this is all of your artboards from the top down. And then this button here is whether or not you're reversing things left to right, top to bottom. Okay. All right. Then this is the spacing in between each artboard, and that's it for artboard stuff. So really quick, I'm just going to go ahead and create this document so you can kind of see the the way it works. So right now we're saying we want 3 columns, so there's going to be 2 rows because we've got 6 artboards here, right? You'll notice here this changes to rows. So then we would have 3 rows of 2 each if we clicked to create the document here. So I'm going to go ahead and create this, create the document. Okay, and you can see now we have 6 artboards here. Okay, Control 0 fits the artboard that's currently active on the workspace. Control 1 is a view of 100%. Okay. Also, you can see these if you ever forget how to manipulate, how to zoom in and zoom out, and all that kind of thing. Right here, if you go up here to the top and you click View, this section right here has all of the different view and manipulation things that you can do. So if we want to fit all the artboards in our workspace area, it's all Control 0, or we can select this, and that centers all the artboards into one area. Okay, so let me close that. We'll go back over here, File, New. We're going to go over here. Okay, so we've got Amazon template. Okay, we're going to drop this down to 1 artboard. So that grays out all the artboard options. We want it to be 15 by 18. We're going to use inches. Okay. Now let's say we wanted to work with a bleed for some reason, but most of the time in merch you're not really going to be working with a bleed. But here, the reason I want to show you this is because it's really cool, and a lot of fields where you're manipulating dimensions in Illustrator allow you to do basic arithmetic inside the field. So let's say we wanted a bleed of 0.25, right, of a 1/4 inch, but we didn't know that that was what it was. We could do 1 divided by 4, and you'll see over here in the other 3 boxes, because I've got this chain link set up, that means that all these boxes are linked. So anytime I make a change to 1, it would make the same change in all the others. So you'll notice if I do 1 divided by 4, it automatically does the math at 0.25 inches here. Well, let's say I don't want to work in inches, right? Let's say I want to work in, I want to do 72, well, what is it? How many picas in an inch? That'd be P, right? So you can see, right, I go 72. Right now I don't even have to designate the pica because Illustrator's assuming that that's what I'm going to enter in, you know, because it's working in 15 by 18 inches, right? But you can see it's already doing the math. It's converted, because I'm choosing to work in inches here, it's converting the picas into inches over here. When I tab out of this field, all of them are going to show 1 inch, right? But let's say I you know, for whatever reason, I want to go 72 divided by 2p, right? So that's giving me 0.04 inches. PT is points, right? So that's doing the math, converting it to inches, all right? Let me tab out of that. And then the other thing I wanted to show you here too is you can change this to be points if you want, right? And it automatically does a conversion over here and all the conversion down here. Picas. So now, you know, basically a 15 by 18 document is 90p0 by 108p0 in picas. And we come back to inches. So it does all this conversion mathematically because this is a math-based program. Okay, we're not really wanting to work in pixels in Illustrator, okay? So then the rest of it, as far as the default template for merch, is we're gonna want our color mode at RGB. We can split the raster effects by, you know, into 150 PPI, leave the preview mode default, and we can create this document, okay? So let's go ahead and create it. All right. And then we want to grab our black tool here. I did Control 0 and that centered the document in the work area. You'll notice that that this red outline right now, that wasn't there in the other workspaces that I was, or in the other artboards that I was showing you. That's the bleed. So if you have a bleed designated, it's going to be shown by this red area right here. Does everybody know what a bleed is? Hopefully. Okay. What it is if you are working with a printer and you need a color, you need to make sure that a certain color or a certain graphic extends all the way to the end of the viewable area. A lot of times you're going to want to extend it past the area where the printer might actually cut the document. And so that's why you might want to work with a bleed. So you make sure that you're extending it past where they may cut to give them a little bit of wiggle room in case their cuts are not exactly right on. Okay. Oh yeah, also I wanted to show you guys this over here. So this is our toolbar. And right now, because I'm doing these video webinars, I have this in a 2-column format. But if your screen is big enough, you can actually switch this to a single column format. I kind of prefer to work in a dual column, but if you wanted to do that, there's this double arrow right up here to the left. You could click on that, and then that'll change this toolbar to be a single column on the left side. Okay. To get back to the dual column, you just click the double arrow again, and it comes right back. All right. Okay, up here, this is called, this bar at the top is called the control panel, and you'll notice it's context sensitive. So whenever we click on a certain tool, these tools up here are going to change. So for example, if I grab my, my type tool, we're going to see the font box appear up here and the font size and all that. So let me click on that to show you. And you'll see that the toolbar changes basically to give you quick access to the different options that you have based on whatever tool you're using. So if we click on the rectangle tool, okay, you'll notice that we get rectangle items. And then like if we draw a rectangle, right, you see now we get all the align, 2 tools, the shape. If you click on the shape box here, you get all your shape options. So that's something else that's probably important to understand is whenever you see an item in the toolbar up here, or sorry, in the control panel up here, I use the terms interchangeably because I'm self-taught, but we should keep it accurate. So this is the control panel. Anytime you see kind of a glowing white text with a dotted underline under that, that means you can click on it to access the dialog with all the settings that would affect it. Okay. So again, you've got your shape here. You can click on that. That gives you all the different shape options you have. So let's say we wanted to rotate that rectangle by 45 degrees. We can click in there, put 45 in, and it rotates at 45 degrees. Okay. If we wanted transform, here's our transform tools. We can designate what our key point is if we're rotating or if we're manipulating the object around the corner point or around the center. So let's see what that might look like. So if we did 0, you'll notice that we rotated around this anchor point here, or this reference point, or some people call it an anchor point. Okay, so if we go to 60 degrees, you'll notice we're rotating around this guy right here. Okay, but if we want to rotate around the center, okay, you'll notice if I don't know, yeah, so if I rotate it by 180, it just rotated around this center anchor point right there, and that's what the anchor points are, right? That'll come back. You'll use them a lot. Okay, so let's close this. Okay, one other difference between Photoshop and Illustrator is that there is no, you'll notice there's no close all tab here. Of course, I've only got one tab open, so let me fix that here real quick. Let's see, grab this guy. I'm gonna want to open that. And then, oh, here's something else that you can do too. So you can actually drag, so what I'm doing right now is I'm dragging this image from my desktop into Illustrator, into where the tabs live. And by doing that, this is, I think it's a JPEG or something like that. It's gonna actually create a new document, okay? And so now we have that new document centered inside of this humongous artboard. Okay, there we go. Sorry, bear with me. I gotta grab my tool. Okay. Grab the black arrow tool to make sure that we can manipulate the artboard. Okay. Anyway, so let's get back to how we create a template. Okay, so we don't need this rectangle tool for our template. all we have to do, so if we know that this is exactly the way we want the document to look on any merch design that we're going to do, let's go ahead and save it as a template. And what we need to do there is we just go File, and the way that we made sure that we saved it as a, or the way that we made sure to set it up for merch is we set all those settings at the beginning when we created the document. So we can come down here to save as a template, okay, and then it's going to default to whatever you named it in that top bar. But if you want to name it something differently, you can. Okay, so I want to go, because I already have one right here, and you'll notice that the extension is going to be a splat.ait. Now, here's the other thing. When you're working with Illustrator and you're creating templates, it's always going to default to this folder here. Wherever you have Adobe installed, then in a cool extras, en_us templates, right? You can save this to whatever folder you want to save it to, but it's going to be a real pain in the butt to work with in the future, because you're always going to have to navigate to that folder for, you know, to pull out the templates you're going to work with. So I just suggest that you save in this default folder here. It's going to make your workflow a lot faster, at least for your templates. When you're saving off your actual designs and your work, then you want to save those to a custom folder. But when it comes to templates, just save them into the default folder. Okay, so we click Save here. And now, getting back to the thing, Photoshop, if you remember, has a close all, so you can close all the tabs at once. But you can see in here that Illustrator does not have that option, okay, unless you know the magical secret shortcut key thing. I wish I had a prize to give away to somebody to guess this, because I bet there's some advanced Illustrator users on here. But hopefully I'm actually giving you guys a tip that nobody knows about. And so to close all documents, all you need to do is go, well, first of all, to close a document, the shortcut is Control-W. So to close all documents, guess what? We just add a key, and it's Control-Alt-W, and that closes all the documents all at once. So if you need to, if you're ready to wrap up your work for the day, and you want to close everything all at once, that's how you can do it, Control-Alt-W. Okay, and then if there's unsaved changes, it'll still bring up the dialog box. Do you want to save your changes? So you don't have to worry about that. It's not going to just close everything and not care. Okay, we've got about 7 minutes left. I have just so much more to cover. I was going to talk about a few other navigation things and then talk about guides and this kind of thing. I want to open it up. Does anybody have any questions right now for things that I haven't covered that you think would be applicable in this beginning webinar? Go ahead and put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. Or do you want me to go ahead and cover the rulers and the guides? Okay, I think I've got enough time to go over rulers and guides. All right. I hope I haven't put too many of you to sleep. Bear with me here. Okay, so since we just saved a template, we're gonna open a file from the template. So we can click New from Template here, and then that's gonna give us the option to open up the template we just created. So we can do that. That'll open it up centered in the workspace. And let's see here. Okay, so if you want to view your, if you want to view anything, right, you can come over here under View. Obviously, we're gonna show our rulers. Okay. The thing about rulers in Illustrator is that they are they will automatically associate themselves to whatever artboard is selected. Okay, so let's say that we had actually, let me do this. Let me grab this guy. I'm going to drop him in this document here. We're gonna stretch him out a little bit. To stretch him and keep his aspect ratio, what you do is you grab the corner and you hold your shift key down just like you do in Photoshop. Okay, hold shift down, and that's going to expand or you know, make it bigger or smaller proportionally, right? If you let go of your shift key while you're still holding your mouse button down, your dimensions will go out of whack. So if I let go here, it's not going to be quite right. Go there. Okay, so we can undo that. The other cool thing about one of the other differences between Photoshop and Illustrator is Illustrator supports multiple undos with just a Control-Z shortcut key. So that's probably important. You're going to end up doing that a lot as well. Okay, so we click off of this guy, or let me make him a little bit bigger there. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in another image. Okay, so if I drop this up here in the tab bar, it's going to create a new image. Okay, we don't want to do that in this case. We want to have a second image here. Okay, then I'm going to shrink this guy down. Okay, so now we have two images, and they're both on this one artboard here. Okay, and you can see that the dimensions, the 0, like if I click on this 0 here, double click on it, that puts a guide there, and you can see where they intersect is in the top left corner. Okay, one of the other things that is important to note is, you know, you can see like I got pretty close to this 0 here, but I'll bet you I didn't get right on it. Okay, and this can be important when you start working on some intricate designs. It's really important that you get your guides in the right place. And so in order to get your guides in exactly the right place, you need to be zoomed in so you can, because, well, what you're going to see here, I know I haven't explained some of this yet, but I do have my smart guides turned on. And so even though, you know, normally your smart guides help you snap to exact numbers, we missed, right? Even though I was pretty close, we missed. So, so you can zoom in here and you can double click. Now you're actually getting right on that guy, and now those two guides are right there. But even then, look at that, I missed it just by a little bit. If you ever want to clear your guides, you can come up here and go to guides, clear guides, and that clears them all. We're doing on time, so we got a couple minutes left. If you want to change where the 00 is on a document that you're working on, you can grab the corner here and you can drag it, and you can see that the 0 repositions itself to where you drug the bar. So you click on that, okay. And this can be important, like if you're trying to work on a specific margin, or you want to center a couple things. The guides can be extremely important. The way you get a guide onto the workspace is you just click and drag it down to wherever you want it. Okay, that's another way you can do it instead of just double clicking. You can click over here on the ruler and drag it to wherever you want it. Okay. All right, guys. So that's about an hour. Does anybody have any questions at all? Do you feel like you have a little bit better understanding of Illustrator than when you started? I hope not everybody's asleep. All right, guys. Yes, good stuff. Okay, thank you, Julie. I appreciate it. All right, so again, this was just a quick overview of some basic ways to manipulate the document, to create a template, to manage your a very, very brief thing about guides. We're going to get into a lot more detail, and we're going to start working on some practical things that that you'll want to do as you're doing your designs and that kind of thing in the next Photoshop and Illustrator tutorials. Let me go ahead and paste a couple of links for you guys, right? You know, before you leave here, real quick. Want to make sure to paste. So this is Shawn's group, his Facebook, the POD Master Group. Actually, let me go ahead and now I know you can't see that, but we can change that. We can fix that really fast if we know what we're doing. Okay, so this is Shawn's group. Okay, and then let me make sure I didn't. Yeah, okay. So then this is my group. It's kind of a long one, but I'll go ahead and paste it into the chat as well. So it's Photoshop and Illustrator Sorcery. And again, if you haven't joined yet, please go ahead. Feel free to come in and join. We want to make sure that we can answer anybody's questions. We've got a couple of people in there that are contributing content already, and so feel free to contribute content and to participate and like the posts or hate them. I don't know if whatever. Feedback is more than welcome in that group. So I appreciate everybody participating. And then if you start working on projects, post them and brag and or share if you're having difficulty. Okay. This is the Photoshop tutorial from last week. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll post this into the group. Oops. I'll post this into the group. Oh yeah, hey guys, I want to show you this really, really quickly. Okay, so remember how I was telling you guys that in order to move around a document, right, we want to press the space bar to get our hand so we can grab and move around. Okay, well, what happens if you've got your text, you've got your flashing cursor in a text box, right? And you want to grab your document and move around. Well, if I hit my space bar, what happens? That's no good. That's no bueno. We just put like 85 spaces in there, and what's worse is, check this out. What if I was like totally zoomed in over here working on something? Oh my goodness. See, this is the kind of thing you can get into trouble, right? Okay, so if I'm zoomed in to this area right over here, look at that handsome guy. I'm zoomed in, working on this stuff right here, okay? But my text cursor is up here in the text box, and I'm trying to move around, it doesn't work. I'm just going to be adding spaces here, right? So how you do that is you hold your Alt key. So this only works if you've got your flashing cursor in your text box. You want to move your artboard around, you press and hold your Alt key, and that gives you the hand, and then you can grab the workspace and move it around, okay? So then when you come back, there's not 85 spaces in your text box, like when you're like, what happened there? Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's see here. We zoom that down. And then one other link that I want to put in the chat is this guy right here. And I'll put it over here. So if you don't, oh my goodness. Okay, so if you don't have Creative Cloud yet, you can get it here. This is an affiliate link, everybody, okay? So this will help out if you get your subscription through that, but full disclosure, it is an affiliate link, and it will help us out. It doesn't cost you any more money. It doesn't, it's not, there's nothing special about it other than it helps us out. So if you decide to get your Photoshop or your Illustrator or anything, we'd appreciate it if you used that. Okay, and then you can see here, students and teachers, you can get all apps for $20 a month. If you're an individual, you can get Lightroom and Photoshop for $10 a month, which is a heck of a good deal. Okay, if you just want one app, if you know you're going to be only working in Illustrator, right, you can do it for $20 a month. But in my opinion, this is the guy right here, okay, because this gives you access to every single program that Adobe makes, and so you've got Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects and every little thing. So, but if you don't need everything, then these two options are fantastic. Okay, So everybody, I want to thank you so much. We've gone over about 5 minutes. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me and being patient. This is a new thing for me to be giving webinars on the Adobe software, and I'm really honored that Shawn has invited me to do this, and I'm excited to hopefully be helping you guys out. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Okay, if you have any questions, hit me up in the Facebook groups. All right, good night.